Welcome into the ADP, the Average Dudes podcast with your average dude host, Matt Mormon, riding solo here this evening in the fallout of the first game of the NFL season. Football is officially back, ladies and gentlemen, and we had kind of an interesting one here with the Chiefs falling to the Detroit Lions 21-20. I would say the big story from an NFL standpoint on this one was the Travis Kelce injury and what that meant for the Chiefs on third downs in particular. And I think it kind of exposed that at least here early on in the season, the thing that I think a lot of us were worried about that nobody ever wanted to say, right, was like, what happens if Travis Kelce does go down, right? What happens if this is just the Mahomes show and these 5 or 6 wide receivers that nobody is sure is actually good? I think everyone had like their 1 or even 2 that they thought could be good, right? I think that's the appeal of all these guys in the draft, was that all of them you can kind of look at and say, well, I can see a path where Rashee Rice is what Sammy Watkins once was for the Chiefs, right? He's kind of that physical receiver. Me personally, I can see a path where a Justin Ross, who was so highly acclaimed at one point in time, comes back from his injuries is really good. I also was a Kadarius Toney guy, and I kind of fell off of that when he got hurt in the preseason, or in training camp even, not even preseason. And he had a rough night. We'll get into that here in just a little bit, but like Tanner, he was really in on Sky Moore. And I think everything kind of played out the way you would almost fear it would for most of those guys. I think let's start there. Let's start with the Chiefs wide receivers from a fantasy perspective here. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 2 catches for 48 yards. One was a 34-yarder. It's on 2 targets. It's exactly what you think MVS is going to do, right? He's going to get at most 5 targets in a game, and he's going to catch one that goes for over 30. And if he does that, then that's going to be enough to at least get you something. But if he doesn't, then it's a total 0 for you. Justin Watson, he's pretty much the same player as MVS. And it was kind of interesting. He had 4 targets, 2 catches for 45 yards. And it was interesting because in a way it felt like he was like designed wide receiver 1 sometimes out there. It was really just kind of interesting seeing that. Rashee Rice, the rookie in his first game, the second-round pick, he had 3 catches for 29 yards. He caught a touchdown on 5 targets. Look, if you're going to go off one game, I think Rashee Rice is definitely the Chiefs wide receiver to get. Because being a rookie receiver, I really never have high expectations for them in the first half of the season, right? We talked about that a couple weeks ago, how Jackson Smith-Njigba's injury, to me, it doesn't actually mess with his timeline much. I wasn't expecting much from him early in the season. And by the way, he's actually going to play week 1, so that's a whole different note. But what I think is interesting there with Rashee Rice is he's the one Chiefs wide receiver I don't think really ever did anything wrong. I guess MVS didn't either, but MVS wasn't asked to do much, but he does his MVS job, right? And so I think with Rice, there's just at least the rookie caught touchdown week 1. There's some uplifting feelings there in a room where there's not much to be uplifted by. Richie James had 1 catch for 6 yards. Justin Ross had 1 catch for 6 yards. Sky Moore had 3 targets and 0 catches for 0 yards. He did get 1 carry in the game. It's hard to find snap totals this quickly after the game. I'm recording this the game ended maybe 15, 20 minutes ago or so. It's 10:45 here right now as I'm recording this. And Sky Moore, I feel like he was out there a lot. But I feel like he just really never got the ball. 3 targets and he didn't come up with any of them. So not something to be encouraged there from Sky Moore. And that's kind of my worry with all these guys, is that any of them could have been 3 targets and 0 catches. And I thought the Sky Moore price, it was the highest price of the group, And so I was never really willing to pay that. The only team I have him on is a dynasty team where I already had him. And that wasn't exciting to see. And then there's the real blubber of the group at the moment, man. The real looking like a dunce tonight. Kadarius Toney, one catch on 5 targets. He had 1 yard receiving. He had negative 1 yard rushing, and he had a drop that went straight up for a pick 6. And those are the kinds of plays that get you in the doghouse. And I think that's one thing with this Chiefs offense. All of these guys had to try to avoid the doghouse. And I think that's where I really fall into Rashee Rice is like, dude, you caught a touchdown. You never screwed up. That's wonderful. You did all we can ask you to do tonight. Excuse me. Uh-oh. Hang on one second here. There we go. I am back. So, Kadarius Toney, bad night. Multiple drops. The one was just atrocious. He did have a couple other ones also. But the one that for the touchdown is the one that everybody's going to look back on and remember. And really, it was kind of the pivotal moment of this game. That pick 6, then you had a Mahomes 3 and out, and that pretty much killed all the Chiefs' momentum for the rest of the night. One thing I do want to mention is we'll pivot kind of from the Chiefs receivers. Let's go to the Chiefs running backs here. Pacheco, 8 carries, only 23 yards against the Detroit defense that really did turn a corner. I want to say it was in like week 10 of last year where they went from being one of the worst run defenses in the NFL to one of the best. And I did start Pacheco in one league where I also have Breece Hall. I was just worried about Hall for that first couple games, And so I figured I'd give the shot with Pacheco here, and that kind of backfired on you. In PPR, he did have 4 catches, 31 yards there. So he did at least get you something in those 4 catches. I mean, that probably is a career high for Pacheco. And then Clyde was a little bit involved too in the offense. He had 6 carries, only 22 yards. And it kind of is what I was worried Clyde would be. It's just annoying, isn't it? Like if those extra 6 carries or even just 3 of those carries go to Pacheco, right? If we're sitting here tonight and Pacheco had 11 carries instead of 8, we're probably feeling a lot better about Pacheco. But this is one of the things I was a little bit worried about with Clyde. And then, Jerick McKinnon, when the injury happened to Travis Kelce, I kind of thought there was a chance that McKinnon was going to be a beneficiary of this thing. And I remember he had 1 catch on the night, and it was kind of early on in the game, and I was like, yep, there it is. It's going to be a McKinnon game. He's going to get 5 or 6 these third down flips, and there are going to be 5 or 6 catches, and most of them were probably going to go for like 6 yards, but he's going to break one, right? It's going to be a McKinnon game. That was it, though. He finished with just 1 catch on 2 targets. So really nobody benefited from the loss of Travis Kelce. Mahomes, only 226 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but 1 interception. So kind of a quiet game there from Mahomes, 23 points in the opener here, which, it was the higher score compared to Goff. But, if anytime you face Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't go bananas, you feel he got away with something, right? So anybody going against Mahomes tonight probably feels pretty good about that. All right, let's shift gears. Let's go over to the Detroit Football Lions. And in the 21-20 win, it was interesting to see the game script here because they obviously came out wanting to run the ball, really run their offense through the running backs and Amon-Ra, which is kind of what I've been expecting all offseason. And what was interesting is they kind of did fall behind going into halftime. It was 14-7. And so you saw them start to get away from it just a little bit there in kind of the middle portions of the game until they made the comeback. And, Dave Montgomery, man, it was kind of what I thought it would be early on in the season. It's going to be his show, and I think he's good enough to keep it his show the whole way through. He ends up with 21 carries for 74 yards and a touchdown. And, he didn't look great, but I thought he looked fine. He was out there on third downs a lot, which I think is also a little bit encouraging from his standpoint. Getting him those pass catching opportunities potentially, but he did not even have a target in this game. And that does surprise me. Jahmyr Gibbs, this also surprises me that he only had 2 targets and 7 carries. Now, the 7 carries doesn't surprise me one bit. He had 42 yards. He really should have had, if not a touchdown, maybe someone would have caught him, but he should have been close to a touchdown. It was on, I believe, their first drive of the game, maybe in their second drive. It was a stretch play run to the right. The entire defense went to the left, and Gibbs just fell down. There was no one near him. He actually got back up and tried and got tackled for like a 2-yard loss. But yeah, he definitely should have been able to make more of that opportunity on that play. But individual plays, it is what it is sometimes. He definitely had those rocket ship moments, right? He had those moments where he looked like he was shot out of a cannon. He showed the speed, he showed the quickness, he showed the excitement there from time to time. I would have liked to see him get a couple more targets. I was a little disappointed to see it just be two targets. He caught them both for 18 yards. I would have liked 4 targets just to feel a bit better about his role early in the season, right? Like with where we were drafting him in like round 3, I think even though he's a rookie, you still wanted to get more out of him. You wanted to be a don't even think about it starter, at least as your RB2 early on in the season. And, I don't have right in front of me who they play next week, but I think it might be worthy to, I can see scenarios where he's not one of your top 2 running backs next week. I doubt you've got enough guys to put it to not flex him then, but I just feel a little less confident in the short term on Jahmyr Gibbs than what I thought I was going to. I kind of thought there'd be a bit more involvement early on in the season, getting both guys the ball. The 7 carries part isn't what bothers me. It's only the 2 targets, especially when you did just have Dan Campbell kind of go, oh, we're going to use him in different unexpected ways. Well, apparently that way was just not using him from time to time. Elsewhere on Detroit, it kind of was what you thought it would be. Josh Reynolds did have 7 targets. He caught 4 of them for 80, so that could be a bit of a deep sleeper, deep league desperation dart throw guy for maybe the next 8 weeks or so. Like Jameson Williams is gonna miss the first 6 games, and then it's gonna take him probably 2 or 3 to come back, right? So really, so 7 targets went Josh Reynolds' way. 6 of them went to Marvin Jones. Sam Laporta did have 5 catches for 39 yards on 5 targets, so you like to see that. The rookie tight end getting 5 targets in his debut is encouraging. Amon-Ra, 6 catches, 71 yards, 9 targets, 1 touchdown. Hey, man, it's the sun god. That's an Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of game. It was nice to see him get that touchdown because just his archetype is one where you worry about touchdowns. So it's nice to see him get one early on in the season here. I've been a bit nervous that he's going to land somewhere around like the 5 or 6 touchdown range, just because of stylistically who he is. And over the course of the season, you would prefer to be closer to 8, right? 8, even 9 would be wonderful. Jared Goff with a nice game, 253 yards, 1 touchdown on the night for Jared Goff. 16 points, if you stream that in, you're probably okay with it. If it's your QB2, you're definitely okay with that. 1 touchdown, no picks. That's kind of what you look for out of a Jared Goff game. So moving forward with these guys, we'll just kind of take a quick look ahead here at next week for these 2 teams as I pull up that schedule, and I struggle to do so with it while I talk for a moment here as I go over to the scores tab. And as week 2 loads, I have a circle. Come on, circle. There it is. Okay, so Detroit, they've got Seattle next week, and the Chiefs have Jacksonville. That's interesting. I think both of those are decent enough matchups to kind of play the same guys you played tonight. Seattle, that makes me feel a little better about Gibbs. I definitely feel good about Montgomery. That puts Laporta, we'll see what Higbee does on Sunday. The Seahawks were very bad against tight ends last year, and I think that's something that can definitely change year over year. But if Higbee has a good game, that makes you feel a little bit better about Laporta desperation play next week. So maybe he's a guy who can get you through week 2 at tight end. Of course, we're always looking for streamers when it comes to the tight end position. And then, man, the Chiefs could really use Travis Kelce. And they said on the broadcast tonight that they're hopeful he will play as soon as next week. If he does, then you're obviously just playing Travis Kelce. You're not even thinking about it. And if he's out and it kind of looks like what it looked like tonight, I don't know if there's a Chiefs receiver I can really recommend. I think Rashee Rice is maybe the long-term dart throw hope. But I don't know if I can really recommend him for week 2. But he is a guy though. If you got some bench space, if he went undrafted in your league, which he was probably a fringe guy, probably depending on the size of your league. 10-team leagues, I think he was definitely undrafted. 12-team leagues might have been a little hit and miss. What's his roster percentage on Sleeper? It's not one to show me. It's only 0%. So if Rashee Rice is owned in 0% of leagues, he's not. Then maybe you do go get him in some. But I think that's pretty much the only actionable advice from this one is maybe go pick up Rashee Rice. And he's more of a long-term play than a short-term play, I think. So that'll do it for us here tonight. Tanner has a whole list of every single game on the podcast feed of starts and sits, your entire week 1 preview. Tanner Ward's got you covered. And tentatively right now, we are planning on getting back together Sunday morning, and we're going to do a live stream, just like this one I'm doing right now, where we will, kind of go through the games a little bit more in depth on some things Sunday morning. Hey, if you're there live, shoot those start-sit questions into the comments. We will totally help you guys set your lineups. Even if you're playing against us, send us those, and we will try to help you. I promise we'll be honest. We will try to help you beat us. And so that'll do it for me here tonight. Be sure to go check out the podcast everywhere you get that podcast feed. You guys know all the places. I almost said Applify. Apple Podcast, Spotify. iTunes doesn't exist anymore. That is Apple Podcast. Go watch it on YouTube. I'm live there right now. You're getting this on demand, though, if you're in the podcast feed. I'll post this one up for the morning. And follow us on Twitter at ADP Dudes. Follow me at Real Matt Mormon. Follow Tanner at Tanner Ward 7. And that is why Tanner Ward does the outros.